Marketing Meatball Mafia. I'm Allison Micheletti.
And I'm Christina Sarge. Today we have Cory from CallForce.com joining us today to talk to you a little bit about that next step in the marketing funnel when we've delivered that lead to your practice through your wonderful marketing efforts, and what happens next when they're calling the practice. More often than not, we see a lot of missed calls going to voicemail, hang up, and the practice sadly never knows they have the opportunity to convert that patient. So not only does CallForce help you with the calls that are getting before and after business hours, but also those times when the practice is open and you might be getting a lot of phone calls at the beginning of the day during your morning huddle. And really a lot that we see that's missed is during that lunch hour, when we see a lot practices switch their phone over to voicemail. Cory's team can help you with not only as an quasi between answering service and team member, but they also have some other services that are very valuable to practices as well. And Cory will jump in and talk to you a little bit more about that.
He also has some really great real statistics for us to look at so we can see what's happening in real time throughout the dental industry.
And so without further ado, let's get saucy. All right, Cory, thanks for joining us today. We'd like to get started by you telling us a little bit more about yourself and how you got introduced to this crazy world of dentistry.
Oh, I think most of us, I'm going to be honest here, I think most of us got into dentistry by accident.
I would agree.
We know we did.
We did, definitely.
I want to clear the air here. I didn't wake up one day and think I wanted to be in dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting story. I'll give the microwave version. So I was going to college at Brigham Young University in Utah, and my aunt works at Weave Communications. Okay. She's over business development at Weave. And when someone cancels with Weave, they're a phone system company. Mm-hmm. They ship their phones back to Weave. And they amassed this closet, and it's not your ordinary closet, of returned phones.
Okay.
And it was one hell of a closet. And so they offered me $500 to come clean out this closet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a college student, and they told me you could show up at any time. Like, I was showing up at like 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning and organizing this pile of phones. Mm-hmm. And that's my first introduction to dentistry. I didn't know anything about it, but I knew I could stack phones in the right direction and make money because of it. Because of that, I became good friends with the COO of Weave, and from there, time job. And it's just been a wild couple of years since then, but I've loved every second of it.
Okay. So what motivated you to then branch off and start CallForce?
Yeah, so when we were working for Weave, they went through a period where they actually had to downsize some of their staff about 2.5 years ago. And they were going to lay off the division that CallForce started as. So my partner and I, Casey, about 2.5 years ago, purchased a small division from Weave, from them for a great price, and started CallForce.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So we often, Allie and I, refer a lot of clients directly to you because we find that while we're working hard with them as their marketing partner and they're getting lots of opportunities, sadly enough, and because we track and are highly data driven, we track all those calls coming into the practice, we were hearing way too often calls going to voicemail when the practice was in fact open, lunchtime, or the staff trying their best to be helpful on the phone, but a patient was coming to them that was trying to schedule an appointment, and unfortunately those calls weren't getting scheduled. So we really needed a solution or another partner that we could introduce them to say, listen, your team is fantastic at patient care, and that's what we really need them to be great at. Phones can be a tricky skill, and it is a learned skill. Let's have somebody do that heavy lifting for you, and CallForce has been a fantastic partner just for that service. So can you explain to our audience how CallForce works for picking up that lifting for an office as far as answering the phone and converting those hard-earned marketing leads?
Awesome. So to start off, what got us into this is looking at some data over 1.4 million calls.
Wow.
We studied 200 practices for a long time. And 32% of their calls are missed.
Okay.
And no matter where you check it, when you get that much data, no matter how many times we've looked, we're seeing about 28 to 32% of all calls are missed.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And you guys are marketing.
Right. We know.
That's a ton of missed opportunity. I'm
Yeah.
preaching to the choir here. But that's when we were like, holy smokes, we need to not even spend more on marketing sometimes. We just need to make sure we're actually capturing that opportunity.
That's the key.
Mhm.
That's the key. You can't always necessarily just get more aggressive with marketing. Let's look at what's really happening here. Maybe the marketing is your expenses are great and it is generating what we needed to generate.
Right.
And then that's where you guys come in.
And the analogy that we share with everyone is if you took a traditional funnel that you pour water through, that when you pour water down the funnel, that's marketing money.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that eventually becomes production.
Right.
But the problem with practices, and just as you guys have talked about, you miss calls or you have not properly trained team members or staff on the phone, and you lose water before it actually goes out the funnel. You have holes in your funnel. So our goal at CallForce is to be that seal so that when you spend money into production.
Absolutely.
Right.
We couldn't agree more. And I think we're all here to help practices grow and optimize their spend and the return. And it's all connected.
And I know Allie and I've talked about this. We have clients that the marketing's working really well for them, but for some reason they're not seeing that equaling scheduled patients or scheduled new patients or a specialty consult. And when we really dig in to find out what's happening, a lot of times it does boil down to those phone calls are coming in, the form submissions, the appointment requests, and they just don't have a system in place to convert those patients that are calling or emailing.
Or the manpower.
Right, or the manpower. Or it's like, so many practices have that we work with are smaller and more boutique. They have people that are multitasking and doing multiple jobs. So, it's hard for them to maybe capture all those opportunities. Or again, like phones really can be related to a sales skill. And that's not something that comes natural to healthcare providers in general, is to have that sales portion of them where they're able to convert people on the phone. But that's why we love your team, because that's just what they do. And they act as if they're in the practice. So can you tell us a little bit more about what it would be like when a patient is calling, if they would be able to tell that the phone's being answered by CallForce?
Awesome. So what CallForce is we help with the missed calls. And we're open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Mountain Standard, Monday through Friday, and 9 to 5 on Saturdays. Now, we're continuing to expand our hours because we realize we want to capture more opportunity for practices. If a patient calls at 6 in the morning, generally the practice is not open.
Correct.
But a lot of people, and I can share a personal story here, have emergencies through the night. And it was last year. And we were moving offices, and it was 11 o'clock at night, and we had finished. And I was speaking, we're doing a webinar to about 400 dentists the next day. And I went home, and I ordered some Domino's pizza. This is an ad for Domino's. And I took my first bite into my Domino's pizza, and I felt something weird happen. I was like, this is strange. And I felt something clink around in my mouth.
Ooh.
My dental implant fell out. At 11 o'clock at night.
That's terrifying.
At 9 o'clock the next morning, I was going live no matter what. And I looked like a pirate. It's not a back tooth. It wasn't beautiful. And I just remember panicking because I was like, how the heck am I going to get to a dentist and be ready to go by 9? And so I did not sleep much that night. But at 6:30 in the morning, I was like, okay, maybe by, the greatness of the earth, I can reach a dentist. So I just started calling. And finally at like 7:15, I was able to reach a dentist and was able to get scheduled. And so the goal of CallForce is to be the capturer for these opportunities and opportunities during the day, where if you're closed, it rings through directly to us. And if you're open, it rings 3 to 4 times in-house, about 20 seconds of ring time. And then after that, it rings through to us where we're your backup team. We have access to your EagleSoft, your Dentrix, your Open Dental. We can take new patients. We know the insurances you work with, the times that you're open, what doctors are in each column, what hygienists are there. If they have billing questions, who to go to. The best way I would compare CallForce is there's team members. We can't be a team member. Any organization who promises you to be just the same as a team member is probably overpromising and under-delivering.
Sure.
But we're not an answering service either. We find that middle ground where we can represent you as a dental office and provide an amazing patient experience to help your patients and help your practice grow.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Did we already touch on statistics? I can't remember if that was before we filmed or if we didn't.
No, I think we should maybe touch on that. Yeah.
So, Cory, do you have any statistics as to when these missed calls are coming in to practices?
Yep. So right as offices are opening up, a lot of people are trying to reach them, i.e. me. And during lunch hours, there's a misconception, and it's still true. You do miss calls in the later evening. There is another burst right as people go home. But in those early morning hours, there is a lot of missed calls. You're getting in. You're having your morning huddle.
Yeah.
You're checking in multiple patients. The doctor asks you to come to the back, and those are where a lot of that 8 to 12 time is where a lot of missed opportunity happens.
But think about it. Patients are probably calling when it's most convenient for them, right?
Sure.
Which is either maybe on their commute to work, during their lunch, or right when they're getting out of work. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
So aside from, your team's gonna answer, you're not going to, you're that in between the call center and a team member. So can they schedule an appointment through CallForce?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. No, we can schedule new patients. If we had a Cory call in, we could get them down for a limited exam or a consultation.
Sure.
We can confirm your hygiene appointment. No, we're pretty robust in what we're able to do because we're dental only.
So that's pretty perfect, though. The practices are no longer going to have those missed calls of the voicemail hang up, because I also think there's this big misconception that people are going to leave a message. And what we've observed through our own software, Smart Market, and where we can go in and listen to those calls and they're already logged and graded for us, is that if your phone is going to voicemail, that person's hanging up. So it's a lost opportunity, and they're going to go down to the next doctor that they found on Google or on the map, and they're going to call that practice. But if your team is answering and now they can schedule them,
absolutely,
that's perfect.
Huge. And we actually looked into that new patient voicemail percentage. 13 to 14% of new patients will leave a voicemail.
That sounds about accurate.
That's low. That's low. And think about how many might get the voicemail. That's
Sure. So what other services can CallForce help with? I know we have a couple clients also using your click-to-chat feature, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, so we have a managed website chat. So website chat is something that is endlessly growing, and it's becoming a norm in life. When you go chat with American Express or Visa or Delta, they prefer you to actually use their online chat functions.
Yes.
And so we built a chat service that is managed, because an issue for dental offices is there's 3 to 8 team members. And if it's hard enough for a practice to answer the phone, you don't have that 30-second response time to get that chat as well.
Sure.
So we have full-time team members who are trained for the office, so that when someone chats, we're responding within 17 seconds and actually scheduling and helping these patients out in real time in behalf of the office.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah. I want to talk about this for like a quick moment. I think online chat is definitely widespread throughout, businesses. I do think dentistry is a little late to the game. And have you found that that's a little bit of a difficult conversation with dentists, like why you should consider this? This is the way things are moving.
You are speaking to me so well here. This is where I'm getting excited, because with website chat, what we've noticed is dentists calls, but a lot of dentists don't realize they're losing opportunities when people just go to their site.
Yep.
It's not about us selling that service. It's about us educating dentists about it.
Certainly.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's a tool to simply help them, help their business, help their communities get healthy. And it's becoming the expectation for really all generations. This isn't necessarily a younger millennial thing. This is a lot of people are expecting this type of way to communicate with businesses.
It's a common misconception.
Yes, for sure.
Exactly. And for us, a lot of our clients are fee-for-service practices, or they're participating with very minimal insurance plans. So they're telling us all the time, we need the right type of patient. We need the type of patient that values their healthcare and dentistry. We need a patient that is going to be receptive to our treatment plan, and not only receptive, but then willing to pay for these services. Well, some of the conversations I'm having with clients is, again, we're showing the data to back this up, doing the research of what employers are in the area, what employers are, have the best benefits packages available, so we can be more targeted in the types of patients we're going after. But we're also looking at the demographics of the type of people that work there and saying, look, everything we know, and this is, I guess, a little bit of like dabbling in sociology a little bit, is everything we know about this type of person says they're busy. They want immediate gratification. They don't have time to make a phone call because they're already in their head, maybe subconsciously thinking, oh, I've got to call. It's probably going to take a good 5 minutes to get a hold of somebody. Then they're going to want to ask me all about me and all my dental background, like my health record, and get all my insurance information. Whew, I don't have 20 minutes to spend on the phone because I'm busy. These are the types of patients we want in the practice, the busy, successful professionals. So they don't have the time to do that. But if they have the option to go to your site and click to chat and do that real quick from their most likely from their cell phone, they certainly will engage with something like that, and you'll be able to capture the right types of patients you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And what we've noticed in our studies, about less than 10% of dentists are utilizing website chat right now. So if you utilize chat on your website, you are pushing yourself to the modern edge, the cutting edge.
Certainly.
Some interesting fact finds that we've had from actually seeing the data from website chat is everyone thinks it's just going to be millennials reaching out. It's not always. There's a lot of moms who are busy with their children.
Oh my gosh.
Who just don't have another call.
Oh yeah. Oh, busy mom right here. If I have a 13-year-old and a 3-year-old that at either time, one of them can be throwing a tantrum, 13-year-old, very different reasons than the 3-year-old. Or I have the fur baby too that could be carrying on. But if I can, especially since, the time I have to make appointments for my family, and I'm sure I'm not unique or different than any other busy working moms, is at night after we've got the kids settled down or they're watching TV after dinner, that if I have the ability to go to my dentist website and chat and get everything taken care of and scheduled, that's really easy for me. And I didn't even have to pick up the phone and apologize for the circus that may be happening behind me. So it's a perfect solution.
So and that's something we've realized. The second thing we've realized is high value work people they're in the sales process.
Yes.
And sometimes they're not. When you are ready to call, you're pretty far along in the sales process. And so it's the exploratory phase of, hey, does the doctor work Saturdays? Or do you work with my insurance? And that's what website chat allows you to do, is capture those leads and push them farther down the sales process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So what about any other services? Like, for example, when we look at a practice's marketing, let's just kind of call that an all-encompassing thing here. We do look at, of course, new patient generation, and then, of course, conversion, which is a little bit of what we touched on with your call answering service and your chat service. But another thing we look at as well is how many people are leaving out the back door. We have to make sure that we are replacing plus some that are leaving in order to make sure that the practice is growing. Do you have any sort of process or system or product, service, I guess it would be, to help with that side of it as well?
That's actually how we started. So when we were under Weave, it was a company called Recall Solutions.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And the premise is going into the practice management software, pulling the list of overdue patients. And we go from when the patients are overdue to 36 months after they are overdue.
Wow.
And then from 5 to 7:30 at night, when people are actually home, we place calls from the practice's phone number to these overdue patients, and we schedule them directly back in.
Oh, perfect.
That is awesome.
Perfect. And I'm sure because you are data-based, much like ourselves, do you have any statistics for our listeners that, that your team has had, or success rate that they've had with calling these patients that probably, if our practices are being honest, this is the sand that trickles down to the bottom of the priority barrel, and it's just not getting done. So have you seen a percentage return on how many patients are scheduling from your calls?
So the first thing to do is, if your practice is making calls, make them closer to evening hours.
Sure.
When practices generally call during the day, they're going to receive 91% voicemail.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're dialing for dollars.
Right.
Let's just call it what it is. And that's the reason it falls to the bottom of the barrel, is because it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
People would rather verify insurance instead of dialing voicemail, dialing voicemail, dialing voicemail. On average, it takes 21.4 calls for a practice to schedule an overdue patient.
Wow.
So it's no wonder that they just give up after maybe one or two tries. Yeah.
And so call during the night, you're twice as likely to reach people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're calling, make sure that you're actually effectively marking everything. If Ron has moved to a different state or is seeing a different dentist, mark it in your system so you don't go back and call over it and over it and over it again. And we see that from practices endlessly.
Yeah, manage your time well. Make notes, update it, for sure. For sure.
So, and that's why we built that service, is it's a really essential task, and hygiene is the lifeblood of practices. It's the way to increase production.
It's a practice's recurring revenue product, is that as near as guaranteed income as you could get once you keep that patient in the practice, that every 6 months you're going to get revenue from this patient.
And the interesting thing about overdue hygiene patients too is most of these patients we're bringing back in are 18 months overdue, 24 months overdue. These people are much more likely to need additional work than someone who sees the dentist every 6 months.
Yeah. Right. So these are fantastic people to get you back in the chair, even if it's not just for hygiene, like you said. They could have, could have many more needs than a cleaning, for sure.
And
about 1/3 have additional production.
Wow, that's a large. That's 33%.
That's huge.
Sure. So, I'm sure too, these people aren't, what we find, and when we ask practices, well, why, we look at the data with them, track a lot of KPIs, because as Allison alluded to before, everything does apply to marketing in a sense, where those internal marketing aspects of getting people to come back in and reappoint also count. So we go over that with them regularly. But when we're looking at the reappointment rate, or the percentage of patients that are coming back to the practice, and we talk about with the practice, like, well, why is this number the way that it is? How can we make this better? And they'll say, well, there are a lot of patients that just don't know their schedule in 6 months. So it's not that they're being malicious about not scheduling. It's that, again, there's things that we could work on, or a consultant could work on with them to get people to reappoint before they leave with different verbiage. But say that they don't, that patient wasn't malicious about not scheduling another appointment. They just didn't do it. So, everyone's lives are busy, and, for all busy moms, busy working professionals, whatever, 6 months goes by in a blink, and now all of a sudden we're overdue, and we didn't mean to.
We might not even know it.
Right. We might not even realize it, but now here we are. So having somebody that's reaching out to me when I can actually answer the phone, possibly, and talk to them, is a great asset to have as part of the practice.
And it shows that you care.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that you're paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It adds to the patient experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So is there anything, else that you would want our viewers to know about as far as the different services that are available at CallForce, or things that you maybe frequently asked questions that you hear?
No, I mean, we're a pretty simple, straightforward service,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, but make sure that in your practice, you are utilizing every opportunity. Whether you use CallForce or not, I truthfully don't care. But I care that you pick up the phone.
Sure.
I care that you call your overdue patients, because your patients will be more successful,
Mm-hmm.
their oral health will be better, your practice will be better, and just overall, as you do these things, everyone wins.
Absolutely. Sure. It's a win-win-win-win.
Win.
Yeah, just a big W.
Well, one of the things I also love about your solution in specifically is that you don't need to be synced necessarily with any special fancy software to be able to schedule patients, that you really can work with most offices because of your remote capability. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that works?
Yeah. Since we need some pretty in-depth information, we can't scrape it with general syncs. So we use remote access, and that allows us to actually confirm and see exactly what you're doing, so that the pop-ups we see instead of not go through our system. So we have remote access to everyone. We're trained exactly how to schedule for each office, and we're pretty much an extension of your team.
Sure.
That's great. What does onboarding look like for a practice? Like how long does that take typically?
It depends on the service, but I would say about 45 minutes to an hour of sitting down, learning how you schedule, setting up our remote access. And then we have about 5 business days of behind the scenes work, but with the client, 45 to an hour is generally the maximum amount needed.
Fantastic. Short, sweet, and easy.
Right.
Yeah.
And if there was a way, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they wanted to see if CallForce is going to be the right solution for them? What next steps should they take?
So go to our website. Obviously, it's getcallforce.com. And then if people have questions or want to learn more about the data that we have, my personal email, well, my work email, is Cory, Cory, at getcallforce.com. And we want to help practices succeed. So anything we can do to do that, we are all for.
Perfect. And if they wanted to maybe meet you in person, we know that a lot of our clients go to a lot of CE or conferences throughout the year. Do you have any coming up that people should mark on their calendar?
Our next private practice event is the Front Office Rocks event in about a month in Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, awesome.
Great.
So, and do you have a list or a link to any upcoming events that we could put in the description of this video that people could check out?
Yeah, if you send that over, we'll get it added to the website.
Perfect,
Cory. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today about CallForce. I know a lot of our clients really need a product like this, and I'm sure that they're not alone in the dental world. I'm sure a lot of dentists could really utilize your services.
Absolutely. It's a needed service for sure.
We really appreciate you and everything that CallForce does. So.
And thank you guys. You guys care. Like, something that I've learned from interacting with you guys is that you're much more than a typical marketing firm. I'd say you're much different.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Thanks.
We mutually interact with. You're way more involved than I've ever seen before, and you're helping me make people successful. So thank you as well.
Oh.
Thank you. That means a lot. We really pride ourselves in doing the right thing and helping them grow. And it can be a confusing mix of things, but that's what we're here to help educate through that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys.
All right.
All right, Cory.
Thank you.